This is Jeff Krisman, and I'm very happy today to be visiting with a group of folks. However, I do want to start out by introducing a few of the participants. Uh, we have today with us, we have Reverend Dr. Tony Petrinovich, we have Pam Kale, and also James Knight are basically our featured participants. And I wanted to start out by just explaining just very briefly how this group came about today. After participating in one of Tony's calls in November, she brought up the subject of people, showing up and how during the pandemic that has, for some people, not saying it's affected everyone, but it's a very interesting topic to me, and I found myself really intrigued by that. And so Tony and I had talked not long after that call in mid-November, I believe, and really thought it would be really interesting to actually do, kind of a group interview. And I also want to welcome all the participants. I haven't met everybody, and so unfortunately, trying to remember everyone's names may be a little challenging for me, but I want to thank all of you for being here. And I'm thinking that we'll certainly have an opportunity for people that have joined us today to be able to participate and be part of the discussion. So what I thought I would do is really set this up by, and I really want to thank Tony also for coming up with the title for this, which is The Divine Face-to-Face. And it just feels very auspicious, and it just really resonates with me. And hope that everyone is feeling that as well. But really, to start off the discussion, it's become really apparent, at least from my perspective, and this is really the idea, is to be here and hear from you all, what your experiences have been like during this time since the pandemic, in terms of how this has affected kind of, I guess, what you call life in the public sphere or in the public domain. And just with this sense sometimes that it's kind of changed a little bit of the way that showing up feels and connecting with other people, using Zoom or these other types of technologies. So really what I thought I would start off with is, and I was going to start with Tony and then just ask each of the participants, what has this felt like for you? Not so much the stories about this, but really getting a sense of what is your perspective based on how you've experienced, basically showing up with other people and what it feels like in terms of how people show up or not during this time.
Well, that sort of segues really easily into what I was going to mention today, which is vulnerability. I haven't found a lot of difference in the Zoom or Skype or FaceTime connections because that's how I teach classes. So I'm used to being on technology with people. What I have found is that there's an underlying sense of almost resistance to what is happening, not just because we don't like COVID and we don't want to be sick, but the governmental rules, et cetera, that people don't like, having to wear a mask, social distancing, et cetera, that are like, that's like the outside covering of what's going on inside, because people don't like to be controlled and they don't like to be told what to do. And then you add fear of disease on top of it, which of course the media makes a big deal out of. And you get this place that is really chaotic. And I always say chaos is more information trying to enter the system. And that's what's really happening, is that more information is trying to come in to us as a species. But the first thing that always happens with change, even if we say, oh, I love change, bring change on, the first thing that happens, even if you love change, is surprise, is a certain amount of resistance, and then trying to fit it into some place that feels familiar. This is where I've come into this theme, which has happened for me personally, through classes, through my family. In the last 3 days, the theme of vulnerability has just raised its head. I'm really like a dragon, where the only way to get to the place that you want to get to is to make yourself so vulnerable that you literally unmask yourself in ways that you never expected to do, say things that you never expected to say, and that it's really, in the instances that have happened for me within the last 3 days, it's like the only way out, that there isn't any other way that you're going to solve whatever the issue is until you take off your mask and become so vulnerable that you go to that place inside yourself that you probably hope nobody ever sees. And I really feel that this is happening for a lot of people because there's a sense of almost futility or surrender because there's no getting away from it. It was like my dentist said when I went to see my dentist, when this first started, I had a tooth cleaning appointment, and she had her mask on and she had her hair covered so that the spray wouldn't get in her hair, and she'd take that home. And we're friends, so we can really talk. And I asked her how she felt about all of this, and she said, well, I'll tell you this. Viruses are absolutely microscopic. You're not going to get away from them no matter what you do. And in that is that feeling of surrender where you have to just say, okay, this is the way it is. Now, how am I going to be with it? Or am I going to try and fight against it? Which takes you back to being vulnerable. Because that's basically what we do. We're either vulnerable and we're seen, and then we let people see us, or we put our mask on, like the divine face to face. We either let people see our face and who we are, or we don't. And most people, when they're feeling challenged, put that mask on plus armor so that they can't be quote unquote attacked. And this sense of vulnerability that I feel coming up is, I'm feeling, going to lead us into the new year in a way that we've never expected.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's some, and I'm finding myself as you were sharing those things that I am really sensing this is really resonating, and so I'm very appreciative of that. And I can even find in my even today, just getting on this call, I haven't ever quite done anything like this. So even just to to tell you how spot on that this feels to me is that even doing this today, there was a little bit of hesitancy that I felt, and that's so interesting that you were talking about vulnerability, because I realized as soon as this started today that this is not just like talking to one person, that there's a lot of different variables.
Mm-hmm.
And I could already feel just in the time that this has started that suddenly there was this, I could feel like this need to control to a certain degree that I've had to let go of just as this is happening in the moment. So I'm so glad you shared that today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Certainly. And then Pam, I was going to essentially, ask you the same question, just from your perspective, what you are seeing in terms of people, either, during this time and with these changes, as far as people showing up or in some ways not showing up in other situations.
Thank you, Jeff. And Tony, that was just brilliant what you just said. And I feel like there's a lot of changes I had to make because I do a lot of personal hands-on things. So I had to learn technology a little bit more. The Zoom, that's been a lifesaver for me, to see my clients and to see family members that are too afraid to leave their home. And to know that I can still do this interaction with people and to still do my work, or play my painting and seeing clients, and know that it's going to be perfect either way. It's going to unfold the way it needs to, and to let it unfold the way it needs to, and not fight or put emphasis on what is kind of going on the outside. And I keep trying to go back in and seeing where it's landing in my body and seeing what I need to let go of, or, so that the energy can just flow more easily inside me or through me. And when I'm with clients, just to make them feel, comfortable that this is okay to do it through Zoom and mail out their product and painting and all that, and it just works fine because there's no restriction in the energy. It's all around us. It's flowing through us. There's no, it's always there. So, like the distance, it doesn't make any difference to the energy. to us, the divine I am. On another level, like I feel I'm letting go of a lot of things that, especially with family things, like, and my husband, I think we have different points of view of what's going on out there. And so that's kind of interesting when you have, and then I think one way I'm going one way with it, and then I get more information and I think, oh no, I'm going this way with it then. So now I'm just trying to keep it to myself and just seeing where and how it's going to play out, you know, since we don't know really. I mean, there's so much information coming in from all angles, and we think we know, and then we're like, oh, I don't know. So it's an interesting playthrough. So, and I feel excitement though. I feel like there's this great excitement going on inside me, and I feel like but I don't know what's going to be unwrapped. You know, it's like this little gift inside that keeps kind of expanding, and I can feel it, and it's like pulsating, and it's, you know, and I feel this joy, and even though I don't really know what it is, I know it's, you know, it's me, but maybe on another level that's going to be expressed. I'm not sure, but I feel excitement about it. And when people get stressed or worried around me, and you know, and I can get caught up in it too, but then I go, whoa, you know, gotta, you know, find more coherence in the energy, and, you know, just do the things I know I need to do to get to that coherency, either go for a walk, or, you know, drum, or, you know, sit outside, anything that I feel in the moment that's going to help me get more in coherency and let go of the stress or fear. So
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then James, I was going to ask you as well, just in terms of, you know, what your experiences have been with, you know, people that you have relationships with and that you work with, you know, in terms of how they show up, or in some cases not.
Thank you. I'm totally present, Tony, Pamela, thank you, Jeff. I haven't necessarily perceived those things. I mean, I work a lot with the body. Like today I had a session actually with my father, which was interesting, because working with family and working with friends sometimes is different than working with clients that I don't know. And I feel people extremely available. I don't necessarily experience the vulnerability. I have found it really effective. Like I know Pamela and Tony, you also have, I'm sure you're having similar effects. Like, wow, incredible things that we can still share via Zoom, which is interesting because I'm a very tactile person. So previous to COVID, a lot of my work was traveling around the world, trainings, retreats, workshops with large amounts, you know, big groups. And so for me, it was the art of tuning into the collective energy and the nuances of people's body language, and being able to touch people. Like that's really what informs what comes through me as the next thing, you know, as the next creation. So I still find that that's happening via Zoom. It's a bit challenging to not be able to do those things. So, but I just see my clients and my students just grateful for the opportunity to have guidance and instruction. And at some of the psychological challenges, or, you know, some of the emotional and mental things.
Sorry.
Oh, somebody's.
You might want to put it on mute, Laura. There you go.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
So anyways, I'm trying to make this more succinct. I just experience gratitude from people, and seeing the results, immediate results. And the question comes back more to me, like, what am I experiencing during this time frame on this side of the camera? But I don't think that was the question for this panel. So if you're interested, I could share that. But I think the question is more, what do I observe from the from the customer or the student. But yeah, to be honest, yeah, everything I just said is how I feel. So grateful that we have this tool. Most of my reflection is what I experience on this side.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I didn't know if you had anything you'd want to add, in that regards, kind of from, from your perspective. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. If you don't mind.
Oh,
Well,
sure.
first, so the word vulnerable, I can tell you that I did my first virtual workshop in September, and I had 65 people from around the world. And this is really interesting because I didn't have the little Brady Bunch squares on my screen. I'm behind me doing movement on the floor, and I can't see what people are doing. I have to tune in and trust my own soma to go next and imagine what people are experiencing. So the vulnerability is all eyes are on me, but I can't see anybody. So it's like teaching blind. So on that aspect, I feel some vulnerability, and it's beautiful because I get to really integrate more parts of myself during that process of like, look what's arising. I get to be aware that I'm aware that I'm aware, and at the same time, I'm present to my cueing and the breath and the posture. So it's this beautiful orchestra of a lot of information happening all at once, and I get to find myself right in the middle going, okay, and letting this inform me, and the energetic field as well. So that's interesting. And let's see, the technology can be frustrating sometimes. The connection going in and out, that can cause some frustration. And mostly, I think the biggest challenge for me is spending so much time on this black box. So much time in this little teeny frame where I'm like less than 2 feet from my camera, and it just doesn't feel natural. Like I want to be able to have a view. I want to be able to move my body. So to be sitting down is such the opposite of what I promote, which is movement. So I'm finding myself challenged by this. It doesn't feel integrity with what I'm teaching as movement as a lifestyle. But it's inspiring new creations. What can we do at the chair? What can we do because this is it? But my eyes get fatigued. I'm only using certain tissue in my body, lots of tissues not being used. So this is inspiring the next thing. But for me personally, that's what I'm aware of is sometimes I feel maybe angry that I have to spend so much time in this little black box, 2 feet by 4 feet. But I'm finding new ways to nurture myself by spending weekends now are unstructured. I spend time outdoors and I'm appreciating that even more. So that's just a bit of thing, there's more, but that's kind of like an overview for me. It's more of a self-reflection. And then the empathy for other people might be experiencing the same thing. I think that might inform the collective field as I can imagine when my students and clients are relating with me that they might be feeling that too. So that might inform the next piece of offering. So yeah, it's a deepened relationship. And Pamela, like you said, there's some excitement. I do feel some thrill in it. I feel like, this may be the wave of the future. So, what's next? What can I be forward thinking or forward feeling into creating new programs, new systems to not acknowledge this way of communicating?
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. I've really had just one other key question, and then I wanted to really be able to open this up to, to all of the participants that are here with us today in the group. Tony, I thought I would ask you, and of course, I don't want to put any of the three of you on the spot, but if for people who are finding, I don't know, this may be too broad of a question, but I wanted to at least give this a try. For people who are finding themselves a little bit hesitant to be on Zoom or have the video camera on or to do a FaceTime call or to be willing to be vulnerable. I didn't know if there's anything that you just did that the three of you might share about that, just in terms of, what could be helpful.
Well, I probably would say if someone asked me that from the standpoint of a class, because like James was talking about, he's used to being with people and touching, and that informs him. I'm so used to being in front of the screen that that's just where my life is. And because of that, I relate to everything sort of as a classroom or a course format. Having said that, I find that some people are afraid to get involved with the technology because they think that they're not smart enough. Or, you know, when you talk about computers, people will say, I don't do computers. You know, they just don't want to go in that direction because they think that they can't figure it out. And what I like to do is to say, okay, I really understand how you feel. May I take you step by step? Tell me what you're using. Are you using an iPad? Are you using a tablet? Are you using a phone? Are you using a computer? I can take you step by step through the pieces that you need to know to be able to be seen on whatever technology you're using. On the other hand, the vulnerability piece, like James was talking about, that really struck home for me, James, when you were talking about feeling vulnerable because you didn't have your regular format there and you could feel a little bit of anger to start with. And that's what I was talking about originally, is there's this resistance and then the vulnerability comes in if you'll allow it. So it's really about allowance. To answer your question a little more directly, Jeff, I think it has to do with a person's desire to connect. How much desire is there really to connect? And it can be really strong. People feel really alone right now in many respects. And yet there's this offset of, I don't know how to do this. And it's really not that difficult. The software looks difficult. I mean, Zoom, you can do a trillion different things with, but if you just focus down on, I'm going to do a meeting and just ignore everything else, it all works. So it's really about going back to the vulnerability theme and saying, okay, I really don't get it. And this happens for me. Philip is much more, my partner is much more technologically astute than I am. And I'm really, really technologically literate, but he knows so much more. And if there's something that I don't understand, I just say, I don't understand this. And he can give me a look like, you've got to be kidding. And I go, no, I really don't. Can you show me this? And it's letting yourself again be seen so that you can be seen.
Yeah.
And especially with the holidays coming and people not being able to get together, there's just so many ways for us to do what we want to do. Zoom isn't the only one. There's FaceTime, there's Skype. I'm sure there's ones I don't even know about. Facebook has Pam's used it, the Facebook camera. So again, we go back to how much resistance do you have to something that you don't know? Are you willing to change enough to come on and be able to experience it? I know Karen and I have had all kinds of things. She has a lot of different things she needs to do to talk to me. And she just gets in there and messes with it and says, I can figure this out, I'll fix it. To just know that it's a piece of equipment. It isn't something that is in control of you or has power over you. But again, it's that allowance where you just say, okay, I really want to connect. And it goes back to like Pam and James talking about how they feel this excitement. And that's what I was talking about, this vulnerability. I'm seeing the desire. I mean, everybody wants to be vulnerable enough to be seen. Doesn't mean you'll do it, but you really want it. And
Yeah.
as this whole COVID thing is just taking us into 2021, and it's like, will this ever end? There comes a place where that excitement comes in and you just think, I give up. I'm going to do it. This is going to be fun. And that allowance then creates the connection and union, because it's in the whole field. Everywhere in the field is this desire. All you have to do is tap into it and decide that that's what you're going to do. And again, it isn't hard to find somebody to help you. I remember Philip's always saying, he likes YouTube. Philip's always saying, oh, just go watch a YouTube. And I go, yeah. And then there was this thing I wanted to do in Photoshop, and I'm pretty good in Photoshop, but not really an expert. I can make it happen. But there was one piece I couldn't get, and every place I looked for a tutorial, they'd always say, okay, now that you've done that, and then they'd go on. I go, no. Now that I've done what? I have to get to this place. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do what Philip tells me to do. I'm going to go on YouTube. There's this 12-year-old boy in Italy who says, okay, now we begin. Here is the first thing you need to do. And I'm going, oh yes, that's what I need. So the help is out there. All you have to do is be willing to say, okay, I cave, I give in. I can get help if I really want to do that. And again, it depends upon how much you want to do it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I was going to say, Tony, that I wish I had known you when I kind of it was at the fork in the road. Once the pandemic started, I used to do all of my interviews in person, and they were all audio. And I remember just the thought of, I realized if I was going to continue this, this was the only way. And I had so much resistance to just see, me seeing my own face being recorded, and me
Yeah.
wondering what other people thought of me, and whether I could, whether it would change everything. I wish that I would have known you at that time, because I do have this sense that it would have been much easier for me to have been willing to be vulnerable this way. And I kind of went into this kicking and screaming and having to figure it out myself.
Help is always available.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. That is good to know that. And then Pam, I was going to ask you as well, just anything you might, if people, were to speak to you and just mention that they have some hesitancy about showing up and showing their face and being with people, and, what you would share with them.
I get what you're saying about kicking and screaming, though. That's kind of me. I'm very, very stubborn. Tony knows that. But I do show up, and the people that do show up and take the time to show up, I want to be the best I can be in that moment for them. And we'll do that. We'll do that through Zoom, and I'm like Tony, I'll comfort them and tell them first, if they have problems with technology, I'll get them on the phone first and try to walk them through it and get them to, and make sure they know. Like, a lot of people are even afraid to download stuff on their phone because they think that, I'm like, it's a free app. If they ask to be paid, if they're saying that you have to pay for the Zoom app, then it's the wrong app. And I'll send them a link. I'll send them a link to what it looks like, and and the link, and try to just make it as easy as they can, and just walk them through it, and just sometimes that first phone call, just to ease their heart and mind about it. And you can feel them kind of like, even though it's through a screen, I mean, there's no distance. I mean, you feel people, and,
Oh yeah.
and you can feel when they're, having some resistance for even, just, and I said, it doesn't matter. Like, if how, it doesn't matter what you look like. It's more, or even you, like, it's just that owner skin stuff, and it matters what people feel from you from inside. That matters, and they're going to feel that. And I think people are really tuning into that more and more, because they know if you're full of BS or not. Like, it's just like, it's right there. Like, they're going, yeah, I get you, or I don't get you, and they're going to move on, or they're not, And so I think it's very important to be as real as you can, and really share from your heart as much as you can, and then they'll feel that, and make them feel at ease. And yeah, I don't know what else.
Oh no, thank you. I appreciate it. It's definitely very helpful, and and I love what Tony is, what she's taught me in terms of just, showing up as the divine. In other words, not being so wrapped up in these beliefs about, and she has helped me tremendously with that. Just that whole idea of just being here and not having all of that baggage around my beliefs about who I think that I am. And I could go on about that for a couple hours, but I definitely don't want to take us too off topic on that right at the moment. Not off topic, but yeah, just it's not conducive to what we're speaking about in this moment. And then James, I was going to ask you as well, just in terms of, if someone were to come to you and ask you just, what you would actually share with them, what would, any advice that you would give people?
Yeah, a few things come to mind. First of all is staying embodied, or like staying grounded, just having the feet on the floor, having the limbs uncrossed, like Sometimes I'll just guide people into a breath if I find that there's anxiety or tension or fear, and then just encourage them to take the time they need to express themselves, creating space, creating moments of a pause, you know, allowing allowing more time for something to arise. You know, there's no rush, there's no push, there's no expectation. You know, acknowledging the humanity in this moment of, you know, and also, you know, showing that vulnerability, you know, by exemplifying it. So the breath, you know, just what's the breath doing? If I experience tension on the other side of the camera, then maybe we take a breath together, more than one. You know, I like to do cleansing breaths where you can hear an audible sound. So these are things that I use sometimes on the camera and then also in person. It's just keep coming back, keep staying present, don't get too far ahead. I tend to talk really fast myself and think about the next thing. So slowing down, creating space, staying grounded.
Thank you so much. And I'm taking that to heart as you were speaking those words. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so what I thought I would do now is to open this up for questions. This is going to be an opportunity for me to be vulnerable. I think this is the first time that I've actually been on the end of the call where I'm actually looking to see who has questions. What I thought I might do here is maybe have just anybody that wants to ask something to raise your hand. I'm thinking that might be the best way to do this based on my previous experiences. And then I'll basically just call somebody out and let's see here. I've got, and I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this correct. Birgit, is that correct?
It's a lovely way. I take many pronunciations, so that's great. My question is about the use of the word vulnerability. Because while you were all talking, I looked up definitions of vulnerability, and I thought, is this really what they're meaning? So you asked for questions. I won't make a comment, but that's the question.
Thank you. Did you have that for one particular person, or did you want to hear from everyone on that? It's totally up to you.
Oh, Tony got this going, and I think that there's been this going along with the word vulnerability.
Sure.
And I find that it's useful if we just do a double check on what a word means instead
Sure.
of just going along with it. And I really am wondering if you mean vulnerability or something else, and I would love to hear from any of you.
Certainly. Tony, I don't know if you wanted to start. Oh, sorry.
What was the definition that you got, Birgit?
Sorry, I closed my phone. I scrolled through a few definitions, and it was about a fear of harm, be it physical, emotional, etc. harm. And so it was a fear-based, like a fear of that they're going to be harmed by showing up. And like, I clearly am not resonating with that as the definition, because I think that there's something more beautiful going on here and something that people are more afraid of. Like there's a fear, yes, but there's an excitement. And sometimes fear and excitement feel quite the same. So I just looked at this definition of vulnerability and went, is this really what they're meaning?
Okay, that is what I'm meaning in one instance from the standpoint of people feel that vulnerability, and I don't know how this is matching up with what you looked up, but people feel that if they're vulnerable, something may hurt them. So it's fear of physical, emotional, mental. In the cases that I've been talking about in the last few days, it's been emotional, fear of emotional harm if they allow themselves to be vulnerable in certain circumstances. And I agree with you, it also matches up with excitement. I wouldn't say always, but I can say that in one case in particular, by the time the conversation was finished, the person said, "I'm so excited." So they kind of walk hand in hand, but I do mean the vulnerability that equals fear of showing up in a specific way because something's going to hurt me. And usually, if you sit there and talk with the person long enough, which I did, it usually becomes attached to either expectations or how they believe life is supposed to be versus how it is being in the moment. Is calling up within them, and this is the big piece, calling up within them that part that wants to be seen, loved, held, nurtured, and never has been. So they're afraid that it won't be. But if they bring it up and they let themselves be vulnerable with this piece, then they find out that there's an opportunity for an open heart, both on their side and on the other side of whatever the circumstances are. Does that answer your question at all?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks so much for the question. Appreciate it. And let's see if anybody else has any questions at all. Let's see here. Okay, I think we're, yeah, it looks, and I do, unless I'm missing anybody, definitely feel free to speak up, but I think that may be, yeah, looks like that is it for the moment.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, definitely.
I want to ask a question of Katie. I'd like to hear, I'm sure the group would too, like to hear how the soundings that you do are impacting the theme that we're talking about of people being able to show up and feeling comfortable.
You want to hear from me about the soundings?
Yeah, how the soundings that you're doing with people might alleviate, like James was talking about the breath, that he uses the breath. You use sound.
Yeah.
Have you gotten any feedback from people as to how it allows them to show up in their life or feel more comfortable or be more vulnerable or anything that would follow that train of thought?
Well, yeah, and that's the gift of this practice of sounding, is that it strips away very naturally that sense of resistance. And I'm not even sure why. Maybe it's the premise that, you know what, after we chat, you know, you're going to get to lay down and receive. And it's about, the whole practice is based on receiving and being open to receive. And so it has, you know, and when you think of the definition of sounding, you know, you're looking for the resonance to go as deep as possible. So and there's no sound making it with my voice without the breath, so it automatically becomes a whole body. I automatically start to feel my belly button. I automatically start to feel my seat. I feel like I become a column. And maybe people sense that, because then they're able to relax, even if I've never met them before, and go lay down and, you know, turn the camera off, because we don't need to see each other at that point. And then it's so, like you said, you have to be vulnerable to the moment, because the moment is telling you what needs to come through, what needs to be, what tone, what note. And of course you have, when you're interpreting, you can work with that, and you can find ways to do it so that's comfortable for your voice and it's comfortable for your. But what I find is that it unfolds so quickly. It's like I just start, and there's, you know, 2-3 notes, and it just creates kind of the intention of relaxation. It's like a benevolent wave that starts to pour forth, and it's irresistible. So yeah, people have been telling me that they, I mean, gosh, well, they just are able to drop their troubles. They can't hold on to them in that space. Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Beautiful.
It makes me want to jump up and hit the ceiling, you know?
Thank you.
And that really makes me wonder too, maybe what, in terms of this, you know, when there's a group of people, and I realize now, you know, I'm assuming this would be on Zoom. Just any thoughts about, you know, what this can be like for people to come together and show up and to benefit from this together? Or any thoughts about that?
Oh, I think that's a beautiful idea, and I'm there. Um, I'm there. If you guys want me to do a little something now, I would be willing if there was an interest. But yeah, I mean, I can't get enough of it because um, I see the changes it seems to be making in people, and how enthusiastic people are to communicate. Like that really, thank you. Like that really helped me, and I really shifted something important to me. And I think Zoom is a beautiful platform for it. The other one that works well is Facebook Messenger, but yeah, I'd be happy to sing you guys out if you wanted a little sounding.
Yeah, that would be wonderful if everybody's okay with that. Thank you so much. In fact, I'm so glad that you've offered that.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, if nobody else has anything else to say, I'll just go. And then you can finish what you want.
That sounds great. Oh, let's see it.
Take a deep breath. Own your space.
Wow, thank you so much. My goodness, that was incredible. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so appreciative that you were willing to share this with everyone. Thank you. There was a point at which I literally, as that was happening, that I really forgot about what I was here doing and what this was all about. And we were just all, it was like, here we all are. We were all just here together. Yeah, thank you. I really honor this. Thank you. And yeah, I just want to sit here and smile. I want to thank everyone so much. Tony, I just want to honor you and thank you so much for inspiring this subject. And this felt so right when I communicated with you about this, and just what you shared today in terms of vulnerability and just showing up as the divine. I mean, I've been saying that to myself ever since you shared that with me, before I get on Zoom calls for business or whatever the case may be, or when I'm feeling like I'm unsure about, being vulnerable, and I hear that, it's like I almost hear your voice saying it, and it's been incredibly empowering and comforting, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And just want to thank Pam. It's been wonderful to meet you. I'm so glad that you were with us today as well. And James, it's been wonderful to meet you as well, and just to hear from you. And I want to thank everyone who has been here today, as this would not have been what it was had not all of you been here today. So I can't thank you enough for that. Unless anybody has anything else they want to share or add, and I'll just kind of open it up for a moment.
I'm going to add something. It's Birgit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Katie just did a sounding. I have had the great privilege of having an individual sounding with her, and there's so much more to it. So if you got wowed by that, Jeff,
Yeah.
I hope you have a chance for that individual.
Oh, I definitely will.
Sounding,
Thank you.
because it's an incredible experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. It was great to meet you as well. Well, I think that's, I think for now, that's for this moment, I think that we are there. And I just want to thank everyone again. This has been fantastic, and really appreciate it.
Thank
It's been
you
an honor to meet all of you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.